Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Electric Underground Podcast. Joining me are Kayar and ReFKey.
Hi, my name is ReFKey. I mainly play Gradius 3, but I was also helping Kayar's out for the English translation. So here's Kayar. 인사 좀 부탁드릴게요, Kayar님.
네, hello, I'm Kayar. 영어를 좀 잘 못해서 한국어로 이제 대신 이야기하겠습니다.
He's glad to be here. And there's gonna be a lot of questions, and then he's gonna be answering all these questions as much as he can.
Absolutely.
So let's get started.
So the first question that I have is I want to know a little bit more about the Korean Shmup scene, because I think it's super cool that you guys are jumping on the show and that you guys participate in Western events. And so I want to learn more about what is the Shmup scene like in Korea?
그리고 이제 이게 한 번에 좀 길게 말하면 아무래도 또 이제 통역하시기에도 어려울 수도 있으니까.
In terms of our Korean shmup scenes, basically, as you know, it is very niche genre, and then it's pretty much the same here, and we only really have like very small amount of player. So 10 years ago, there was like 30 or 40-ish players back then, because arcade game center was still kind of a thing. But as of right now, we only have like 20 people at best.
Wow.
And like I said, before the interview, there's only like one arcade game center has left too. So if that place is actually closed up, then there's no more hope for our communities.
생각합니다.
What's really cool about the Korean players I've noticed, like yourself and Kayar, is that you guys seem to be taking part in the Western events. Like Kayar had his run at GDQ. And so I was wondering, based on just what you know from the other players, is that an interest that you guys have of taking part in the Western events, or do you guys have a little bit more interest in maybe the Japanese side of things, or how exactly do you guys feel about that?
우선은 제가 지금까지 이런저런 이제 슈팅 이벤트에
In terms of events in general, like we don't really get too much like notification for the events themselves, but rather one of our friends in overseas players, like maybe some of the Japanese players, some of the Western players, like they contact us and then say, hey, why not just play the game on this event setting? And we were like, cool, we'll check it out and then participate the events. So I think from what I know, like Kayar actually participated on the GDQ by one of his Western Shmup players told him to do, so he kind of checked out and then just participated on it. And then same thing with the other events, some of the Korean Shmup events and then some of the Japanese events. His friends pretty much told him to do, so that's what it is.
Oh, that's cool. So it's direct contact to the player in order to let you know about the events. I'll keep that in mind for the next Shmup Slam. Send him a message.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of your AGDQ run, this is a question that I have had burning ever since then, and I'm sure this is the most important question of this interview, which is, what type of arcade stick are you playing on? Because the resolution in the video is really hard to tell. Are you playing on a Japanese stick or are you playing on a Korean stick? And if so, why do you prefer one over the other?
그래서 이제 그 전반적으로 주로 쓰시는 스틱이 어떤 거고, 이제 한국 스틱과 일본 스틱을 So Kayar said he mainly used the Seimitsu LS32. Now this is a little bit tricky. He's not just using a like very regular Seimitsu LS32. It's actually like very modded version of the stick. Basically, whenever he visited Japan, he actually got the very special modded Seimitsu LS32 as a gift. So the major difference between the regular Seimitsu LS32 and then the modded one is that he said he felt very light with it. Like usually he felt much heavier if he used just the regular Seimitsu LS32. And as for the Korean stick, that's something that I was probably just gonna ask. Just give me a moment. Okay, so in terms of comparing between the Korean arcade stick and the he felt that the Korean he still felt a lot larger, so you have to put a lot more effort to maneuvering around, and at the same time, when diagonal movement, He said he felt a lot more precise with the diagonal movement with the same as the LS32.
Right, because of the gate, it sounds like, on the square gate. Awesome.
Yeah, that's also something that I noticed as well. So if you're using a Korean stick, like you have to actually use your strength a lot.
Right.
That's also my preference too. I use LS32 better just because it feels just lighter. That I think Kayar feels the same in that regard. So
yeah,
right.
So when I play on Korean stick, what I end up doing is I end up modding it to use a much lighter. It's funny, I do the same sort of thing, but with Korean stick where I mod it to be shorter, so you don't have to press as far, and then I mod it to be lighter, so it don't have to press as hard. So it probably feels much more like the LS32 after my modifications than the standard Korean stick where the resistance is so heavy you gotta drive it like it's missing power steering or something. So a little bit of a background on yourself as a player, Kayar. How did you get into Shmups? What games were you mostly interested in before you started on Shmups? And what was your first 1cc and how long did it take?
12년 전, 그러니까 횟수로 따졌을 때 이제 12년 전에 그 리듬 게임을 이제 좀 시작을 했었고요.
In terms of Kayar's history, before he played Shmup, I think that was like 12 years ago. He actually mainly played rhythm games, and the game that he mainly played was the 2DX, not like actual 2DX, but then more emulated version of 2DX, Beatmania 2DX. Yeah, he played it for like 3 years, and then after that, he got like recommended by his friends that why not just play some shmups, and then he actually started with the Touhou Imperishable Night. Cool. And then he started with the Imperishable Night, and then he played all the way up to UFO. I think that was like under I don't remember what it stands for.
Undefined fantastical object, something like that.
So yeah, okay. So he played all the way up to UFO, and then he played UFO for like 5 years, and then he did the scoring and stuff, and then after that he achieved all of it. He achieved the all the score that he ever wanted it, and then since there's nothing else to do, so he actually got interested in getting into CAVE games, and then CAVE game he actually played was the original Dodonpachi, and then he played the SaiDaiOuJou later on. So in terms of the very first shmup that he got the 1cc was the Touhou Imperishable Night with the normal difficulty, and then it took like 1 week for him to actually do the 1cc.
So what was his journey like from getting that 1cc to getting his first really big score in a shmup?
가장 첫 번째로 의미 있게 생각하는 점수 기록은 어떻게 되는지. He played a game with his fellow back in like several years ago, and then, well, as of right now, we don't really have much of a competition around players. Rather, it's much more become like competing against ourselves because there's not that much players to left to begin with. So he did play the Touhou UFO, legitimately competing score around his friends, and then he actually made up to 2.9 billion score in that game. So that's the one moment that he felt very meaningful, important moment for him in terms of scoring.
And then what eventually attracted Kayar to SDOJ? How did he go from playing touhou to playing SDOJ, and what was his first impression of SDOJ?
일단은 이제 제가 최대항생의 흥미를 느끼게 된 계기는 그때 제가 한참 동방을 할 때
There was a time that many Korean Smash Mouth players did play a lot of touhou. And then there's actually one of the like best touhou player in Korea. His name was Haro, and then he also played CAVE Shmup as well. He played SaiDaiOuJou, and then also played Ketui. And then apparently Kayar actually got to like watch his gameplay, and then he got really interested, and so he tried it out. And then the first impression for him is that he felt the game is really difficult, like really difficult.
Yeah.
But then another part of him that says, "Oh, if I'm good at this game, that's gonna be really fun." That's what he actually thought about it. In terms of like how he felt about the game, he just generally liked the very fast moving, so much bullet shooting at him, and then just the feel of dodging just makes it feel great, something like that. So I think it's the general bullet hell shmup player. It feels like there's a lot of bullet feeling around the screen, and then the bullet just moving around really fast, and you're just moving around very crazy. It's just the feel of the thrill. That's the how he got really attracted by the SaiDaiOuJou.
재미를 느끼는 이제 사람이라서 저 그런 게임을 굉장히 좋아합니다.
And compared to the other games in the series, in the Dodonpachi series, like the original Dodonpachi or DOJ, what makes SDOJ stand out to him specifically? What is it about SDOJ that keeps him playing as opposed to playing something like DFK? And Daring definitely wanted to know, is it the scoring, is it the bullet patterns, or is it the waifu?
근데 제가 이제 사실은 지금까지 이제 케이브 슈팅 게임을 좀 제대로 이제 했던 게임이 딱 두 가지예요. 도돈파치 시리즈 같은 경우에는
He said that the only actual cave shmup that he played for quite a while was the original Dodonpachi and then SaiDaiOuJou. So that being said, he doesn't really know much about DaiOuJou and then the Daifukatsu like much at all. But in terms of like how he feel about of each game is that the DaiOuJou and then Daifukatsu felt a lot honest in terms of bullet pattern, like the angles and then the directly aim shot. There's a lot of directly aim shot, and then the way of the bullet travel, it goes pretty straight. So he thought that these games felt a lot more honest. Meanwhile, the SaiDaiOuJou, there's like a lot of twisted pattern into it. So one of the pattern is that it's aim bullet, but it goes very slightly off of his shift, so it makes him harder to actually like dodge around the bullets. In terms of how long, why he plays SaiDaiOuJou for long, is that because it's his personal tendency that he can't really play like too many different games at a time. He just likes to focus at one game, and then once he got used to it, he just wants to stick to it. So it does happen that he plays SaiDaiOuJou and then he pretty much got stick to it.
Nice. Well, that's, I think, the recipe for getting really good at a game is sticking with it. Exactly.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like gamers that they just want to like play many different games, and some of them just stick to just one thing.
Speaking of sticking to SDOJ, what does he think about the scoring system, and especially the Overflow glitch? Does he like SDOJ's scoring system as it is? Does he wish the Overflow glitch wasn't there? How does he feel about that?
일단은 네, 저는 굉장히 마음에 들어하고 있습니다. 이것도 설명이 좀 길어지겠네.
예.
네, 일단 그러면
He said he likes the Overflow glitch. The reason that he likes it is because even if they get rid of the Overflow glitch, the general strategy for scoring in SDOJ isn't gonna be changed much at all. And then what's the even issue is that in a stage 5 it gets even more RNG heavy without the Overflow glitch. And also at the same time, he just liked the feel of the cinematic feel whenever he pull off the Overflow glitch.
Right.
So that being said, he likes it and he doesn't want that to be get rid of it.
중간에 격파하면 화면에 있는 탄을 모두 제거해주는 그런 오브젝트가 있잖아요.
Now for the nitty-gritty questions. What motivated him to go for the world record in the first place? Was he focused on going for the world record, or is this something that just naturally happened after playing the game for so long? And when he was playing the game for score, how did he approach routing? How did he approach figuring out how he's going to get this massive score?
이거는 이제 제가 최대항생을 이제 시작하고 나서 이제 하다 보니까 이제 스코어링까지 하게 되고, 그리고 제가 이제
He played the SDOJ 4 years back then, and then he actually achieved the 3 trillion, I believe. I think that's one of his score he got. And then he felt like he wanted to stop playing it at that point, but then he did travel to the Japan, and he all happened to see PKE's gameplay, and PKE was aiming for the 4 trillion points, and then he did watch the how PKE plays, and then the way that behavioral pattern for the achieving the score between the 3 trillion and 4 trillions are just completely different, and then he got pretty attracted by it, so he just felt like, well, why not just play some more and then just achieve as much point as possible. And then he tried to go for the best what he can, and then he achieved it. And in terms of the how he approached the game, he actually watched a lot of PK's video, and then he actually tried to like replicate his behavior pattern. And then, well, there's gonna be a lot of time that it's gonna be difficult to replicate someone else's replay. If that happens, like he just kind of changes it around, like see if it works or not, sort of type of thing. And yeah, that's how he approached with it. Usual save and load, and then the stage select, try to replicate one of the best players' behavior pattern, and then if things doesn't work out, then change it up. Then you might be finding something even more valuable.
And speaking of practicing, what does his practice schedule look like? How often does he play SDOJ, and what would he say is what are the factors that have really helped him increase his skills as a player?
연습은 평일에는 제가 이제 또 일을 하고 이제 또 퇴근을 해서
So he learned every like fundamental in a touhou game in terms of dodging and scoring and then shooting an enemy. The problem is though is that when he actually started playing SDOJ or every arcade games, he was having a too much hard time with the maneuvering shift with the stick. So he was pretty much studying the way to grip the arcade lever, and then he eventually finds out best way that he can actually maneuver the ship. So that's the point where he got very better at the game, and ultimately, yes, the touhou experience basically just carried over him to playing SDOJ really well. So yeah, these two factors are best factor that improve his Shmup skill in general. In terms of his practice schedule, during the weekdays, he does the usual employee work, and then go back home. And then he got some his free time during the weekdays, so he play SDOJ in weekdays for 2 to 3 hours. During the weekends, actually this is depending on his mood. Like if he does feel really great, then he's gonna play the SDOJ like pretty much all day. If he actually feels great. If he doesn't feel great, then he's not gonna just play it at all or just do completely something else. Yeah, it's all depending on his condition. In terms of the factors for getting his gameplay skill got improved, is that the so as we mentioned before, he started playing Shmup as a like touhou player. So one big thing Kayar had a problem with was like control scheme, because touhou was pretty much like essentially a keyboard game, while the CAVE Superplayer mostly uses stick.
And when he's playing and grinding for really high scores, especially like you said, where he's playing all day, some days if he's feeling good, how does he deal with situations where he'll run into reset syndrome, where he'll keep dying early, or he'll keep dying on the same part over and over and over? Does he have any strategies for overcoming reset syndrome, or when he's feeling burned out on the game?
Ah, good question. Okay.
이거는 뭐 저도 뭐 특별한 방법은 없지만, 그러니까 한 가지 확실한 거는 이제 이게 안 된다고 해서, 그러니까 계속 이제
in terms of like dealing with the reset syndrome, unfortunately he says there's really no true like strategy for the thing, but there isn't like some other ways to somewhat like lessen the stress around the reset syndrome. He doesn't always play for the high score, like he doesn't always play aiming for the high score all the time, because that's pretty much gonna cause him to the burnout. So what you want to do is that trying to like think of it like what's your mod today, like what's your condition today. Then the if you're feeling like to play just a full run without resetting, like just do it. And then other time, if you're feeling like if you can focus and then just do some like high score grinding, then just do some resetting and then aim for the high score. So he basically distributes the time for which day to just do the regular full run, and one with the like aiming for a high score. So he's gonna like reset a lot of time on the other day. So just think about your condition before playing it. And then if you don't feel like going for too much high score, then just do a just regular run. And if you're feeling like, oh yeah, I'm feeling so energized, and then go for it. That's how he do it. Distributing time for how he gonna do the run in general.
Advice for players who feel like they're trying to get a high score in a game, like Dodonpachi maybe, but they feel sort of stuck at their current skill level where they're attacking it, but they don't seem to be making a lot of progress. What would his advice be for those types of players?
지금까지 게임을 해오면서
예.
이제 친구들이 좀 많이 있었고요. 제 주변에.
예. Yeah, so it seems like this is like probably the toughest question of your interview so far. Okay, so he does say to his friends that maybe take a break and then just experience something different for a while, just to freshening up some mind. But at the same time, you just have to keep in mind that the if you're going for the high score, the game is not really becoming a game anymore. So I mean, if you think about video games, you think about enjoying a game, right? But if you're aiming for a high score, it pretty much becomes like a more of a work. So before you're actually even starting to aiming for high score, you have to sort of like keep in mind that it's just not gonna be fun at all. So that's what he said about it. So if you're actually going for the high score, you have to just know what's gonna happen. And while doing the high score, and if you got burned out or something like that, then make sure to take a break and then just try something else. Maybe reading a book, play other games. That's the only thing he can say. There's really no other way. Like no legitimate like strategy to like getting better sort of thing.
Yeah,
kind of
like
unfortunate.
You just gotta keep grinding, keep at it. Well, this is kind of a different side of questions, but something I definitely wanted to get his expertise on is what does he think about the different versions of SDOJ and how they perform. So what does he think about the 360 port? I don't know if he has or has ever played the original PCB or the new EXA version, but how would he compare them to each other, especially when it comes to input lag, because the 360 port is very laggy. And I don't know if he's ever tried the EXA port. Does the EXA port feel more like the arcade version with the input lag? How does just the overall accuracy and feel of all the different versions of SDOJ, what does he think about that?
우선은 그 해상도 영상은 저도 이제 확인했었고요.
예.
저도 이제 원래는 그 영상을 보기 전까지는 이제
he owns the PCB and the Xbox 360 version as well. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the EXA version. I don't think he has the experience with the EXA version at all. So there's not that much anything he can much say about the comparison between the EXA version and the PCB and Xbox. But in terms of comparing between PCB and Xbox, there's a lot of difference there. There's a moment there should be a like slowdown in the SDOJ in general, but every slowdown section is pretty much deeper by the versions of the game. So,
oh wow.
For example, PCB, stage 5 bosses like something like Koryu and Inbachi, there's actually some slowdown going on during this stage. But for Xbox 360 version, however, there's no like slowdown at all during the stage 5 bosses. So in terms of just the stage 5 in general, PCB version might be easier for him to play. But rest of every section, like the slowdown doesn't really occur that often during on the PCB version. So in general, PCB version is much harder. And then in terms of scoring aspect, due to the input lag for the Xbox version, so he felt that the PCB version is much more comfortable for him to play. Yeah, that's the general differences. Like I said, he doesn't really have experience with the Exa version much at all, so he can't really say much about it, unfortunately.
Does he still practice on the Xbox 360 version with the stage select and boss select and all that?
Yes, he does. He still play the Xbox 360 version time to time. I mean, like, depending on like what kind of gameplay mode you want to go for, but then mainly he goes for PCB. Actually, let me actually ask this. Actually, just give me a sec. He basically play the PCB version and the Xbox 360 back and forth. The main reason why he still plays the Xbox 360 version is that there's a stage select that he can practice, and then he can save the replay video. And then I heard there's like some of the features for Xbox 360 version that the during playing the replay video, you can actually play some of the part instead of just fully watching it. Like, can you actually confirm it?
That's in the PS2 port. I know that. If you do that in the PS2 port of DOJ, they have a you can take control of the replays, which is really cool.
Ah, okay, yeah. So that's actually one of the very important aspects for him in terms of practice. He can just like watch the video and pause and then just start playing the section that he wanted to play. That's the biggest factor. 360 port, arcade version, PCB, all of them is pretty much important to him. When he going for full run, PCB, just to practice his stages and stuff, then 360 version.
Does he know? I made a video about this a while ago.
Oh, actually, that asked that.
Yes.
He said he knows it. He watched the video and he did felt the difference between the having a low resolution and high resolution. He definitely noticed the differences.
Isn't that crazy? Did that help? Was that helpful at him at all when he was practicing to know that?
Definitely, he said that. He said it was very helpful, but because of the input lag and then the slowdown is actually it gets different. So yeah, it becomes more of a closer to the arcade, but that also means it's gonna get a lot more difficult game because no slowdown means faster bullet, hard to dodge.
Right. So, speaking of stage select and practice mode, what are his thoughts on Inbachi? Does he think this boss will be beaten anytime soon in a run? How does he feel about Inbachi? Because this is really interesting to me.
Okay.
네, 이게 인바치 클리어는 제 개인적으로는 일단 이제 어렵다고 생각은 하고 있어요. 근데 이게
So first impression for the Inbachi when he actually saw like people playing fight against Inbachi, he legitimately think that the game is pretty much impossible, completely impossible. Like there's no absolute way to defeat Inbachi. Over the time, there was still like a lot of Japanese players still grinding against the Inbachi. Like there's actually one player named called SaiDaiOuJou, I believe. I also saw his video as well. He was actually practicing against Inbachi. It was really close. Like it wasn't like legitimately like defeating Inbachi in a run, but it was really close enough that it actually kind of changes his mind a little bit. Like it is possible. It kind of become more like little bit possible way, but still it's not very practical. Because you have to pretty much no bomb the entire game with collecting every bees and all that scoring, and then top of that you have to basically like defeat Inbachi at the end. So it's not impossible anymore, but still very not practical. So it's gonna take a lot of time, I guess. That being said, he's pretty much believe that it kind of become a little bit more possible, but they're not very practical. So it's gonna take a lot of time for anyone to beat Inbachi in a run. Not even like 10 or 20 years. It could probably mean 100 years.
Wow.
Who knows, really?
And what does he think about the scoring categories in SDOJ? Because, for instance, if someone ever beat Inbachi, I'm pretty sure that would be a world record in the Inbachi clear category and all that. So what does he think about the various scoring categories in SDOJ, and does he have any desire to get a world record in another scoring category?
우선은 제가 이제 현재 이제 BXC에서 이제 스코어링을 하고 있고, 그리고 지금 이제 제가 이제 4.7조를 달성했잖아요.
He's still working on the B expert type. Currently, he has 4.7 trillion, but he still wants to improve more score. So in terms of B expert, he also wants to aiming for the not like defeating Inbachi, but actually like go against Inbachi,
Right.
with successfully doing all the overflow glitches and no miss no bomb, all that good stuff. He wants to do that as well. So in terms of other category, like there's not that much category that he's currently that interested, but he is very interested with D-type expert because he can kind of like transfer his B expert skill into C expert. So maybe later he will probably try out the expert in a sometimes in the future. Not now, but future.
And besides cave games, what are his other favorite shmups? Or does he have any interest in going for a world record in any other shmup in the future?
공방 외에 그리고 이제 제 개인적으로 좀 좋아하는 게임이 있는데
Yeah.
그 이제 그러니까 그런 게임이 있습니다. 그 일본 이제 동인 슈팅 게임 중에서
It's pretty obvious that he still likes touhou games, so he can still play touhou sometimes. And then there's actually one specific Japanese indie game he wanted to play. It was called Suguri or Sora. I don't know if you're actually familiar with the game, but he's not really truly aiming for any games, but he wants to enjoy other games. Pretty much touhou and then the Suguri and Sora. These games he wants to play.
And if he could change one thing about SDOJ, what would he change?
그거는 사실 저 같은 경우에는
Yeah.
지금까지의 제 그런 슈팅 게이머로서
He doesn't regret anything. He doesn't want anything to change with the SaiDaiOuJou. He's just very, very happy with it. He just liked the game, and then in terms of achieving his score, his journey, everything what he did so far, he's very happy with it. There's nothing that he wanted to change. The only thing he kind of little bit regretting maybe, that's probably like he spent way too much time on SDOJ, so sometimes it can be a little problem in terms of like real life situation stuff, maybe like get to work sort of thing. So,
Right.
other than that, he's completely happy with everything what he experienced with the SDOJ.
Well, what would he say is the greatest strength of the game then? What makes what is the best feature of SDOJ as a game, as a shmup?
플레이어들은 어떻게 생각할지 모르겠지만
Yeah.
최양생에 있어서 가장 큰 강점은 물론 이제 게임의 그 탐막 난이도가 높긴 하지만
The bullet pattern difficulty is really, really high, but that also means dodging the bullet is the most fun part of the game. Like it's probably the most like fun bullet dodging game he ever probably played. At the same time, he actually, if he got really very like improve his dodging skill in shmup in general. So whenever he actually playing the other game, maybe like Hetsui, the ReFKey, or DOJ Black Label, or Dodonpachi, he can actually like just intuitively dodging bullets really well. So like he like dodging a bullet in games in general because it just feels great, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's the biggest strength.
And so, does he have any other subjects or things about SDOJ he wants to discuss before the end of the interview? Or anything on his mind?
제가 이제 뭐 최대양생이나 그런 게임 하면서 하는 연습 방법에 대해서 좀 얘기를 한번 해볼게요. 그러면
Yeah. 말씀해 주세요.
우선은
In terms of just the stuff that he wanted to talk about is that the how to practice game. Are you actually interested in terms of how he practiced the game?
Yes, absolutely.
Basically, take a look at the top level players replay. The thing is, you can just start replicating like how he do and sort of thing. But biggest thing that you have to keep in mind is that you also want to like understand why he make this decision, like why he does move it like that sort of thing. Maybe he can't just like die in purpose, and then some people just like lost their damn minds, and then they'll be like, why did he die on this place sort of thing. So always pay attention to what he does for a reason sort of thing. And then also keep on watching the live event. He basically plays it on live a lot of times, so check on his plays as well. The reason because is that in a real life situation, there's gonna be a lot of fails. So much run fails, so much pattern fails. You can actually like see that, and then by watching instead of just focusing on how to success at it, avoiding the failure is probably much more makes sense to many people, like, especially if you're learning something. Yeah, definitely check out what kind of failure you could be expecting when doing certain pattern in a game. So check out a lot of live plays and sort of thing. And then in terms of like analyzing replays, he actually had to kind of like analyze the thing by frame instead of just playing the video randomly and then just analyzing things from the frame by frame and just watching it, and then which one is safe, which one is not safe sort of thing. And then in terms of getting his pattern out, this is part of probably his personal opinion. Instead of just trying to like dodge the bullet by just seeing it, always understand the rule behind it. So like if you actually could move in this place, this enemy behavior will do maybe like spamming a bullet pattern in a different way sort of thing. And then make sure to just replicate that situation so many times, see if that's gonna be very safe. So ultimately you want to like stabilize your pattern. Yeah, instead of just trying to like see and dodge, try to understand the games as a like structure. It's not even just about the scoring in general. Like in terms of just the dodging game, you can probably like just thinking about the enemy placement and then the building structure, everything. So just some people just tend to think that it's just like a lot of bullet hell games are just a simple react dodging. Well, the truth is a lot of it there's a lot of rule behind it, and understanding all of it, it just makes things a lot stabilized and then much more comfortable. So yeah, that's how we practice the game in general.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially the part about understanding the underlying behavior of the game. That goes a really long way towards helping you improve at the genre. I definitely can agree there.
Because there's just a lot of like misconception around the shmup community, or just the general people in general. They just believe that it's all pretty much just react dodging, and then you probably see some weird videos about this Dragon Blaze weaving around bullet.
Right, yeah, Shalanchi style.
Oh gosh. But yeah, I think that's all the question.
Yeah, the last bit is just where can people find Kayar's runs and tune into his progress with the game? Where should people be looking?
So he played the game on Twitch. I know it's just difficult to tell his whatever nickname it is. He doesn't go by Kayar or anything.
Oh, okay.
Do you want him to like share the links or something? Or
yes,
I mean,
I'll put them on screen so people can see, and I'll put it in the video description as well. Thanks so much, you two, for coming on the show and answering these questions. I think people are going to be really interested to learn more about what goes on behind the player as far as getting these amazing scores, and I really do appreciate it a lot.
Thank you for your time, man. I mean, we're actually just honored to just interview with you, and I think probably Kayar feels the same about it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kayar.
Thank you, Mark.
So thank you to the $5 patrons: 100, 72 PCT Water, Ukshay Wadker, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Aaron Solis, Ben, Borgi 22, Brian Reboot, Brian Shiver, Chris Yuzefovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Choreo, CRC Error, Danielle Savage, Darren Griffin, Delta Tango 6, Disco Star Slayer, DJ 420 Praise It, Entropy, Eric H, FCK, Frank Carter, Full Set, Retro Shmupper, Geriatric Donmaku, Hausu, Ilya, Kiwi, JLab, JB RPG, Joe Angelo, John Kelly, Gameboy Guru, K, K2, Kikoman 589, Larridge, Malaise, Mark Toms, Maz, Minung, Mechalin, Mitch LY, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron Nia Dagger Games, Oklo Kugels, Philip Mason, Portal63, Radocat, Raul, Real Skeen, Self-Aware, Shane Shinsiensky, Sketchy Raccoon, SLW, The Boot Rex, The Real Ikuzo, TRM, Sugumo, Twilight EX, Yishi, Plasmo, and Yuzakaya. Thanks for watching.